I'll say. I was minding my own business when that filthy mutant bumped into me. "Excuse me," he says. I excused him, right in his face. I like your style.
Hey guys, welcome back, and as promised, this is my full spoiler detailed review on Logan. I've always wanted to do this because I think this is one of my favorite movies of 2017 so far, and possibly one of the best comic book movie ever made. So here we go. Logan is the last entry in the Wolverine trilogy, which is part of the X-Men universe. It is directed by James Mangold, who is one of my favorite directors of all time. He's great at character development, and his movies has great pace, and he's a master of building up tensions. One of my favorite movies is 3:10 to Yuma, which is the best Western movies I've ever seen, and there's one scene that stands out to me the most. Notice how there's no single line of dialogue or any music, but we need to know exactly what we need through the characters' eye contact and the mood itself. James Mangold is great at it. Apart from the fact this movie has a great director, it is the most passionate and somewhat personal comic book movie for Hugh Jackman as well. He is willing to make a pay cut to get this movie made with an R rating and without any studio interference. To the studio, it imposes a great risk, even with the success of Deadpool. For everyone involved, they're not making a comic book movie, they're making a good movie for people who even never read the comic books. And in my opinion, this is why this movie is the best comic book movie. Let's look at the title of this movie, why it is called Logan. In literal terms, Logan means hollow, and it is fitting for this movie because we are looking at a man who had no past, who doesn't even know his real name, but people keep on thinking Logan is his real name. He is empty on the inside. Also, Logan is the human side for the Wolverine character. Just like all these other superheroes like Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, his human side is emotional and vulnerable, which is the best of his worst part. Which leads us to the opening scene of the movie. As soon as the credits open, we see him fighting with a bunch of Latino gangs, which is kind of racist in my opinion, who tried to steal his limo. Now, what do we know from this scene? 2. The whole reason he's fighting is that somebody is trying to steal his limo, his whole livelihood. There's a sense of desperation here. Usually, we don't see a hero trying so hard to defend his livelihood unless he's desperate to help someone or to achieve something. Sure enough, after that, the 30 minutes has nothing significant going on. It showed Logan's daily life. However, James Mangold is the director who is good at doing show, not tell. These seamless, unexciting activities has given us more details about the plot than any other word can be said. First of all, from the radio in the background, we knew that the mutants were history. No reason given at this stage, but we will explain it. As for the main character, we realize that something is wrong with Logan. He's not healing as fast as he should, and he's limping. Something is killing him on the inside. Back at home, we realize that Logan is taking care of a very senile Charles Xavier, and we also know that all the X-Men has been killed for reason that is unknown at that stage. Charles has become, well, somewhat more childlike and disobedience, and there is a lot of funny scenes involving him going nuts with Logan, which can be seen as comic relief, but there's some certain sense of sadness to see the mighty Professor X has become a victim of age. Patrick Stewart's acting is brilliant. It is natural and very sad at the same time. Professor X, in his early Alzheimer's state, told Logan that there are new mutants arising. Logan said, "No, mutants are gone. There are none." Professor X said, Yes, I seen it. They are in Liberty Island." Now, Liberty Island is the incident that happened in the first X-Men movie where they have to fight Magneto literally on the top of Statue of Liberty. Logan thought he was crazy, but in fact, it is true. It's just happening in a motel called Liberty, and the new mutant's name is Laura, which I will be talking about very soon. Now, there is another important character, Caliban. At first, he seemed to be on the supporting side, but now I noticed he is actually pretty important to the plot. First reason is he used to work for the Ravengers, the bad guy. So now, working for Professor X and Logan, there is a theme of redemption going on. And in the comics Uncanny X-Men issue 148, he used to be part of Four Horsemen of Apocalypse, and in the end he died trying to save the X-Men. Secondly, let's look at Caliban's power. He can sense other mutants. Logan hired him to help Professor X, which makes me wonder, is that the only reason he hired Caliban for? I think deep inside, Logan still wanted to reconnect to Xavier's old school. He wanted to start the thing that makes him feel as a family again. Although on the outside, he said there is no other mutant, but on the inside, he still have hope. Let's fast forward to the plot. Soon we are introduced to the main female lead, Laura X-23, played by Daphne Keane. In my opinion, she's one of the best child actors out there. Her character doesn't have much dialogue. Most of the time she tells her emotion and her feelings through eye contact, something that even adults find it hard to do. People used to say, eyes are the windows to the soul. Her performance in the movie proves that. Which leads us to the movie's first fight scene, which is one of the best action set pieces I have ever seen in modern cinema. The music composed by Marco Beltrami is not only beautiful, but heightens the adrenaline. Throughout the movie, his music makes you feel the tension and suspense. The cinematography by John Mattison is also A+. He used a lot of long takes and wide-angle shots with stable camera work, something that doesn't happen often in action movies nowadays. It is very old school, but the effect is amazing. Also, there are a lot of blood and gore. There's no holding back. For a movie with such a big budget, I'm surprised they went all out. I really appreciate that. After the intense first fight scene, we speed forward to the hotel scene, which is another important part of the film for 3 different reasons. 1, this is the part where the family dynamic is beginning to take shape. We see the father, the daughter, and the grandpa, with Logan being the father who is always angry and impatient, yet taking care of everyone and takes the most responsibility. Laura being the daughter being who is the more innocent of the family, but also taking care of the two in a very unique way. And finally, Xavier, Professor X, being the grandpa who acts like the counselor and giving guidance to both Logan and Laura at the same time. 2. The movie Shane that is playing on the TV. It is no secret that director James Mangold has always been a fan of the old Western movies. Although it is playing in the background, this quote from Shane had a significant influence on our character.
For the killing. There's no going back from them. Right or wrong, it's a brand. A brand sticks. There's no going back. Now you run on home to your mother and tell her everything's all right. There aren't any more guns in the valley.
I found this quote to be quite fascinating because it shows the moral ambiguity both Laura and Logan has to go through. In the beginning of the film, Logan killed a bunch of gangsters because he is protecting his livelihood, but in his own explanation, it is self-defense. Same thing goes with Laura. When she entered a gas stop and eat a bunch of chips without paying, the shop clerk stops her, and her reaction was pulling out her claws because to her, he's the bad guy who tried to stop her. Were they wrong? Were they right? For the audience, killing by any means is wrong. But for both Laura and Logan at that moment, they believe it is the right thing to do. So yes, right or wrong is a brand, depending on the people. Now the third and the most interesting point was the comic book within a comic book movie. At first when I saw it, I feel like it's a reality versus fictional world. But now I think it is more interesting than I first thought it is. To Logan, the story, the X-Men story in the comic book are pure fiction. But to Laura, it's a symbol of hope. Something that, as a comic book reader, I can correlate to. We face a lot of trouble in real life, and sometimes we look into the comic book for relief. There's always a hero in the comic book that we always wish to become. But for Logan, that hope is completely gone, and what is replaced is desperation in real life, which explains the difference between Logan and Laura towards the location Eden. Logan thinks that it is a fantasy, something that people can only dream about but can never happen. But for Laura, it is a hope. But underneath, it asks us a very interesting question. Why are comic books so important to us? Do we just like the story and the characters? Or is there something more? How come something imaginary has so much impact in our culture and in our daily lives?
It's all real. Think about it. Haven't Luke Skywalker and Santa Claus affected your lives more than most real people in this room? I mean, whether Jesus is real or not, he's had a bigger impact on the world than any of us have. And the same can be said for Bugs Bunny and Superman and Harry Potter. They've changed my life, changed the way I act on the earth. Doesn't that make them kind of real? They might be imaginary, but they're more important than most of us here. And they're all gonna be around long after we're dead. So in a way, those things are more realer than any of us.
Let's fast forward a bit to the farmhouse scene. A lot of my friends told me that it felt very unnecessary, and some critics said it slowed the plot down and they are developing characters that are going nowhere. I disagree with it. I'll get to the reason soon, but most people didn't like this scene because of the reason for Charles Xavier to stay with the family. They're on the run and they know they were being chased after by the Reavers, so staying with the family is big of a risk and could lead to all of them getting killed. Even Logan knows that. But think of it in Charles Xavier's shoes. They've been on the run for a couple days, and they were exhausted and tired. And besides that, Logan is having a suicide attempt. So Charles was in a way protecting Logan, because he thought after he died, what other reason for Logan to keep on living? He wanted to give Logan a sense of family, something to look forward to in the future. I feel like his intentions were very noble, and as to the fact they were gonna be killed very soon, I don't think anyone in the movie knows that. All they know is they're at risk. Charles Xavier is well aware of that, and he even told Logan, "We're gonna leave at the break of dawn. We're not gonna stay here for pretty long." So, to me, I don't feel like Charles Xavier's intention was to hurt anyone, but rather his intentions were good. It's just the reality is not what he thinks it to be. Which leads me to the reason number one I really like this scene. It showed a very normal family, something that deep inside Logan really looking forward to. Surely there are arguments, there are disputes, there are differences. They face normal troubles like any family would, but it is a family and people looking out for each other. And for the first time, we see Laura smile. I also feel like this scene is executed genuinely well. There is a lot of genuinely funny humor, and nobody seemed to be out of place. Everyone seemed to act normal. To me, this is something that doesn't happen a lot, especially in Hollywood movies. I also like the water dispenser scene where he fight off a bunch of hillbillies. For a moment, we saw the old Logan, as the Wolverine, protecting the helpless. And in a sense, we're seeing a micro version of the X-Men, which makes me really happy. After all, X-Men is a family. Meanwhile, the senile Professor X lying on bed, remembering the horror happened to the X-Men. Now, throughout the film, during one scene in the radio, they mentioned a similar attack happened in Westchester, and several X-Men were killed. The attack was similar to the seizure that Professor X used in the hotel scene. And right then, we know that Professor X had killed the X-Men. It's just he doesn't remember. This is a very sad and somewhat ironic, considering the once mighty Professor X founded the X-Men, yet in his old age he single-handedly destroyed the one thing that he loved. I guess sometimes life is a cruel joke, and in the most tragic way, he was killed by what he thought was Logan, but in actual fact was X-24, the perfect clone of the Wolverine. I guess in some fact, knowing he died by the hand of the pupil he once taught, gave him a certain sense of peace. Which brings us to the X-24. This character is wholly unique to the movie. If Logan is the man, the Wolverine is the beast. He shows no mercy. He massacred the entire family in the farm. He killed Professor X and dragged Laura. I can never forget the face of Logan when he saw X-23. His face went all white, and it felt like he's seeing a ghost. Even Laura, who kept her composure throughout the entire movie, seems to scared senseless. You can just tell from her eyes. The battle was a brutal one. Logan never stood a chance in front of the younger version of himself. After they barely escaped, they held a really simple funeral for Professor X. Both of them were broken, and for both of them, they're all they had for each other. There was a touching moment where Laura tried to hold Logan's hand as a recognition of him being her father. But Logan was so distraught that he refused to acknowledge her. At this stage, we can saw in Laura's eyes that she was extremely disappointed and deeply saddened by his reaction. At this stage, we also realize what has been killing Logan from the start. His body isn't healing well because the metal elementium in his body is what's really been killing him. He is in great deal of pain, which explains the reason why he wanted to kill himself after Charles is dead. Laura tried her best to keep Logan alive because Logan is the closest thing to a family for her. But unfortunately, Logan just couldn't see himself to accept Laura as his daughter. Laura was distraught, and you can just tell through her eyes. Wow, there are so many things I want to say about this movie, but let's just wrap it up, because if I want to talk about this movie, it will go on forever. In the end, Logan sacrificed himself in order to save the children across the border. In his dying breath, Logan realized what it meant to be a part of a family and sees himself as the father of Laura. In her tears, Laura finally recognized him as the father and called him Daddy. It is a very emotionally powerful scene for me. Some of my friends say they wanted a more punch in the guts, but I think this is powerful enough. To me, love is realized when you are on the verge of losing it. And for both of these characters, they realize their love towards each other when one of them is dying. That moment when you realize you really love somebody, but it can never come back again, is really painful and more emotionally effective. When Laura called her daddy, Logan finally found peace. At Logan's funeral, Laura reversed the cross on Logan's grave and put an X symbol, proving that Logan will always live among us as an X-Men. As I was watching the scene, I was tearing up on the inside, and so many thoughts and emotion flourished in my heart. As the credits roll with the angel voice of Johnny Cash, I sat there thinking about a lot of stuff, about X-Men, about comic book, about love. Never had a movie had given me so much to think about. This is one of the movies, the more I watch, the better it's get. It is a very sad movie, but in a strange way, it left me a good feeling when I finished seeing it. It is a movie that taught us the cruelty of the real world, but also taught us how to remain hope in our darkest time. Everyone who is involved in the film, the actors, the director, cinematographer, editor, and the composer, deserves recognition, and I wouldn't be surprised if this film got an Oscar nomination. I like this film so much that I added it into my Blu-ray collection. This is something I rarely do. I only buy Blu-ray for the movie that meant the most to me. I recently started to collect Blu-ray DVDs, and along with Logan, Princess Mononoke, The Thing, and various other movies has become one of the first of my collections. Like I said, I only collect the Blu-rays that meant the most for me. So mediocre or bad movies will not be included in my collection. Hopefully in my future video, you will be able to see some of those collections. And in the long run, I'm planning to do reviews on those movies. Well guys, thank you so much for your support to my video. I know some of you have been waiting for this review for a long time, and sorry it took so long because I had so much things to say. Even when this production is wrapped, there are still more things I want to say about Logan, but I haven't managed to do that because, like I said, it will take forever. So thank you so much, and if you like my video, please subscribe. And as I would always say, if you think I'm good, you're pretty good too.